Yep. So, geography is the study of the world, including all of its environments, its people, its places, its regions, and all of their characteristics, as you guys know. The 5 themes of geography help us take this essentially huge loaf of information, like a loaf of bread, and it cuts it into smaller slices. Way easier to manage, way easier to learn. So, what are the 5 themes of geography? That's a really, large question. Obviously you don't know, or I wouldn't be up here talking. The 5 themes of geography are human environment interaction. So that is how we interact with the environment and how the environment interacts with us. Place, movement, location, and region. So place, Wilson is a place. It exists, it's building, here we go. Movement. I'm here, and now I'm over here, that's movement. Movement involves people, goods, animals, all moving. Location, we're going to talk about 2, absolute and relative. I'll dig deeper into those in a bit. And region is like, we live in the Midwest. That's a region of the United States. Yes, we do. Michigan is in the Midwest. So the first one we're going to cover, so on that next square, the middle top square, we are going to talk about location. So everybody go ahead and title that square location. So, there are 2 types of location, absolute location and relative location. You may be thinking, relative? Like my Aunt Susie? Kind of, not really. It's what we call a location that is described in relation to other places. So if we say Wyandotte, where we are, is downriver from Detroit, that would be a relative location. Or if we describe, so my school, I go to Concordia, that is east of the larger university in Ann Arbor, Michigan University, the university. Absolute location is if we refer to something as an exact spot. So like your address at home, the address of the school, that's going to be your exact location. The Earth has longitude and latitude lines. So everybody say longitude. Longitude. All right. So do you see how your mouth goes? Yeah, it gets long. So that is your north and south lines. Now everybody say latitude. Latitude. See how your mouth gets really wide this way? Those are your east and west lines. So when they intersect, which means they cross paths, you good?
Ouch.
You're so confused.
Your mouth can tell from like west to east.
Yep. It's just an example. You're good. So when these imaginary lines that geographers use cross, it's called a coordinate. So Wilson sits on a coordinate. So what we're going to have you do is we're going to have you draw a little picture. What? You don't have to write down all of this information. I really want you to just, that's good. If you want to write down absolute, address, relative, relationship, that'll be good. So, okay. So if you want to draw your house, go ahead and do that.
My house is very complicated.
Just draw your standard elementary house. And if you're drawing Wilson, go ahead and write Wilson's address down, which I have over here.
We have to write our address on our paper.
You can throw it away, honey. Good morning. Running late today? Running late today?
Yeah, I went to the doctor's.
Oh, did everything turn out okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Have a good morning, honey.
This is your picture for location. Her relative, there's not a great picture I have in mind, so do any of you have an idea for what we could draw for relative? So maybe we could do like down, river, so that's my water, okay? Because that's a relative thing. Doesn't have an exact address. Everybody getting it? How are we doing? Thumbs up, middle, down. Alrighty, I'm getting a lot of ups, so I'm gonna go ahead and move to the next page. So this is gonna be the top right kind of box. And this is place. So, places on Earth all have physical. Yep, so you'll write place in the top right box. So, sure. Every place on Earth has a physical feature. So, when we think of places like Washington, D.C., we think of the White House or a big city. We think of places like Chicago. We think of high rises. Boys? Thank you. So, for me, one of the most memorable places that I have been to is Mount Rushmore. So, for me, for a place, I would draw a big mountain with faces on it. Like I said, we don't need huge pictures or super artistic. I am not an art major, I'm a history major. So this would be my Mount Rushmore. So it's a physical characteristic of a mountain that we have had an impact on at a place. So you can draw my Mount Rushmore, or you can draw Niagara Falls. What would that look like? Honestly, this, and this is all my water. Like I said, not an artist. So,
Yes.
how's everybody with this one?
Kind of doing it different spots because I messed up. That's okay. I can do it.
Moving on, we're gonna go to our third theme of geography.
Okay.
And that's region. So, does anyone remember what I gave as an example of region when we first started talking? Yes. Yes. Can anyone name another region of the United States?
Southwest.
Southwest is a region. Can you tell me what the climate of our Southwest might be?
West is that way, right?
West is that way, yeah.
So it's probably gonna be like hot or
Yep. Our Southwest region has a climate that is much different than ours. Girls. So, a region is a group of places. So in this case, for the United States, that would be a group of states that have physical features or human traits in common. So, For us, the Midwest, we experience all 4 seasons. We get snow, we have a beautiful fall with leaves changing and all of that fun stuff. Fall is hoodie season, you are right. So, for this, an example of a place that has human traits in common would be, I guess you could say a smaller region of the Midwest would be kind of like a suburb or a metropolitan region. So it's a very small area, but it's still a group of places, so you might have a couple cities that all are alike. So for you guys, that might be Lincoln Park, Allen Park, Wyandotte, Southgate, because they're all very similar areas of suburban with shops and roads. None of us really live out in like the far country where we're 6 or 7 miles from our neighbors. Some of us wish we could. So for this, for me, when I think region, I always think of the desert. I'm not sure why, but that's what I do. So I would just draw a straight line, because the desert is kind of sandy. If you want to draw Wyandotte, you can. That's a small region of Metro Detroit. But I'm going to draw a cactus. So here's my desert, here's my cactus, and my tumbleweed. So this is the region that I'm talking about, the Southwest. So this is the climate or physical characteristic that the Southwest region has in common. That is another one. We have coastal regions of the United States. So the U.S. borders both the Pacific and the Atlantic. We also have the Gulf of Mexico. And so those regions would have like the beach with lots of water. And that is a coastal region. So their soil is more sandy than what we call the Midwest. We have clay soil. I spend a lot of time. Alrighty. So can somebody name a region that's maybe at the top or the bottom of our globe? Alaska. What kind of weather does Alaska have? When you think of Alaska, okay. Hawaii is what we have, like the tropical, coastal, the Arctic regions. That's what I was going for. So the Arctic regions are at the poles of our Earth. That's where you've got the icebergs, what we call glaciers, all of the snow,
Greenland.
kind of what we call Arctic tundra. Yes, Greenland is a funny fact. Greenland is covered in ice. Iceland is mostly green.
Right.
They named it opposite things. They thought they could trick explorers. It was a funny joke.
Wow.
So, moving on. Wow. We're gonna go to our 4th theme of geography, and that's movement. Now remember, yes, movement is the 4th one. That's going to be on that middle bottom. So, movement talks about the migration of goods, people, animals, ideas, information, earth, and water. So sometimes, like the actual physical dirt, rocks, mountains, they move. They fall down, they move. People pick them up, we take them. And water moves too. So at home, I have water from the Dead Sea because my friend brought back from the tourist thing, Dead Sea water. It's fun. So the Dead Sea it's a place So it's got a physical characteristic, like we talked about earlier, and it's super, super salty water. So you float. You don't need pool floaties, you don't need anything, you don't have to swim, you just literally sit almost on top of the water because of how high.
Rock on yourself and still float.
Yep, because of how high the concentration or the amount of salt in the water is. So can anyone tell me what the word migration means? So migration, that was a perfect definition, is when things kind of start in one place and then they go and they end up in another place. So people migrate. People migrated all over the US. When settlers came here, they started off on our east coast where the boats landed, and throughout our history as a country, we expanded. We migrated further west along those latitude lines like I talked about earlier. So, for my picture for this, I'm just gonna draw people. Here's my person. He's gonna wear a hat. And this is his wagon. He's got a wagon. He's got a wagon. Pulled by a horse. So he's starting over here, and then we're gonna draw a big arrow. And he's ending at this X. X marks the spot where they migrated to. That is my horse. Thank you. I think he's great. What should we name the horse?
Gerald.
Jeffrey the horse. Reading it in, guys, okay?
My Little Pony.
It can be your little. Alright, so does everybody have this?
Yeah, and then
Everybody have something written down? What's an example of a good that could be moved? Food could be moved. Medicine could be moved. Not trees. Trees can be moved. These artifacts, they moved. They're here. They probably weren't created in Wilson Middle School, right? So that's an example of movement, when people take things from one place to another. Museums are filled with them. Good stuff. They're filled with artifacts. Everything's got to move. So we're on our last theme of geography. Everybody say yay! All right. Eyes and ears. Boys. Thank you. So, our last theme of geography is human-environment interaction. If you want to make this shorter and just write H-E interaction,
H-E-I.
or H-E-I, that's okay, as long as you will remember it. That's what I asked. So, what do you guys maybe think it means for human? I'll give a little brief introduction to this. But what's an example of what human-environment interaction may be? Putting up buildings. Putting up buildings. Building crops. Building bridges. Yes. So the long definition that you guys do not have to write, because we're doing pictures, is how humans depend on. So we depend on our environment. You know, we need water. We use the land. Boys in the back. Thanks. Or we change the environment, like building bridges, adding roads, and buildings. And it's also how the environment interacts with us. So, what's the weather outside today, guys? Kind of cold, rainy. So, do we act differently on a day like to this than, say, a day in July when it's 87 and all sun? Yeah.
As long as it's not humid outside.
Yeah. So, what I'm gonna draw for this one, because we got our human. Here we are, human. How we interact with our environment. So I'm gonna draw a tree, a wave, not that wave. I don't know what that was, but it was not a wave, I can tell you that much. A wave and some grass. And how it impacts us. So, does anybody know what a natural disaster is? Yep. So, a tornado, a volcano erupting, if you live on a coastal region, it could be like a hurricane. One just went through recently. So, if you want to draw also like, this is my tornado. If you want to draw a volcano, this is the volcano erupting. This is how our environment interacts with us. Because we live in places where we might be at risk for tornadoes, so like the region of the US called the Great Plains, it's a very flat area, or Tornado Alley. Again, it's a region of the US that's very flat, so wind can go over it really well. And when what we call, so we're getting a little sciencey here, when a cold front moves in and it hits a warm front, which is cold air and warm air, one dives and one's kind of goes up and it creates a spinning, and that's how tornadoes form. And because there's nothing for the tornado to kind of hit besides houses and people and cars and buildings, things that humans have created when they interact with our environment, it pretty much destroys everything. Yep, Dust Bowl. So when Kathleen just brought up a really good point, the Dust Bowl. So the Dust Bowl happened in a region, one of our themes of geography. The Dust Bowl happened in the region of the Great Plains out in the west because of how the humans interacted with their environment and its physical features. We over-farmed and a drought set in. So when these big windstorms came through, their environment changed as dust storms, huge clouds of sand and rock and dust flew through. It killed cattle, crops, and much, much more. So, everybody go ahead and flip over your paper for me. Yep. So, can somebody describe what a place is for me? A building, so physical characteristics. Can someone tell me one example of an absolute location?
My house. The White House.
The White House.
My house.
All right. Can somebody give me an example of a region that's not the Midwest? The West is a region. And can somebody give me an example of how or what maybe could be with movement?
A car.
A car. Yep, a car can transport people, goods, things, earth, water, everything. And finally, what is one way that humans interact with their environment and one way that the environment interacts with humans? So I'm going to take one from you.
Chop down trees and use wood to house.
We chop down trees. And last one, natural disasters. All right, that's it. You should have put those in your folder.